Yo, this is the Scarcity Studios YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And our sponsors are Alpha Claims and Hire Birmingham, the leading and best accident management company. Get a replacement car anywhere in 1 hour. I really appreciate you joining me again today, and this story comes from Hove, and it's a big story about an encroach case in and around East Sussex. The head of an organised crime group and 9 of his co-defendants have been sentenced to over 138 years for their part in the importation and distribution of Class A drugs. It was called Operation Edge, and it has been going on for nearly 2 years, starting in 2018. Matthew Harrod was described as the Tony Soprano of the group, and in court he was described as having massive amounts of money that was unexplained. He's 47 years old and he's been sentenced to 22 years in prison after being found guilty of conspiracy to supply cocaine, amphetamines and cannabis on the 11th of November. He pled guilty to also breaching a serious crime prevention order. Paul Clark, 45, from Kent, was sentenced to 15 years in prison after pleading guilty to supplying cocaine, amphetamines and cannabis also. John O'Brien, from Bean Road in Greenhithe, was sentenced to 11 years in prison and pled guilty on the 12th of March to conspiracy to supply all of the same drugs. Lee Butler was sentenced to 3 years 9 months for conspiracies to supply amphetamines. Tina Hughes from Hastings was imprisoned for 2 years and pled guilty on the 12th of March also for her role. John Barrett, Lee Taylor and Joseph Walker all were given 12 months in relation to their involvement. Detective Superintendent Neil Ballard said, "Today's sentences conclude a 2-year operation tackling the importation of 31 kilos of cocaine, 308 kilos of amphetamines, 590 kilos of cannabis resin and 3 kilos of skunk and herbal cannabis. 30 cannabis plants were also recovered and £900,000 in cash." They believe the figures represent a fraction of the trade the group was responsible for. A snapshot of Taylor's encrypted devices, the encroach, demonstrated an insight into a typical day in the conspiracy. This involved 30 deliveries and possession of 750 grand in cash. And the police were confident, after taking it into account and spanning the entire conspiracy and the industrial scale of the operation, that this made millions of pounds. Harrod was the head of the organised crime group, and the police said that he thought he was untouchable, similar to Tony Soprano, and he concealed his criminal behaviour with an encroach device. During the trial, it was said that Harrod was leading it, and he directed other co-conspirators and organised the supply of quantities of high-purity cocaine, amphetamines and cannabis through the conspiracy from July 2018 to January 2020. They had substantial links and influences within the conspiracy, and there was a massive financial gain from the illicit activities. They had conventional phones and 2 encrypted phones, despite the terms of the serious crime order that should have stopped him from doing that. Clark acted as Harrod's lieutenant, and O'Brien was just below Clark in the chain of command, and Clark would direct O'Brien and other conspirators who both organised the supply also of all of them drugs. Barrett and Taylor's role, they were significant operational roles, and they were trusted as couriers within the group. They organised various different meets and exchanges between different members of the group, and were involved for at least a year. Messages on Taylor's encrypted phone about amounts of money found and seizures from his home demonstrate his knowledge and the scale of the operation. On one day he did 30 deliveries and was talking to co-conspirators. He was in possession of £784,000 that had been bundled and split on his arrest. Walker was a trusted courier involved in the movement, distribution and storage of the drugs, and he was organised by Clark and given the seal of approval by Harrod. Walker was involved in purchasing a van with Clark and adapting it to include a secret hideout. Butler was also a trusted courier and involved in the storage of amphetamines within the organised crime group. He was involved for at least a year also, and together with Hughes, he conducted a number of deliveries ranging from August to November, and they were found at a beach hut with 42 kilos of amphetamines. The detective in charge of the case added the complexity doesn't stop there. 11 other co-conspirators were also involved in the storing and distribution of the drugs, and have already been through court and are spending their time behind bars. 11 other co-conspirators have already been sentenced: Robert Peston, Anthony Dan, Brian Awanki, Anthony Pitts, Stephen Hopton, Alan Patrick, Laurent Gorbeja, Stephen Atwood, Liam Myant, Corey Goodin and Thomas Sobia have all been convicted of their crimes and have been jailed for a year as well. The police said that they really hope this result shows the dedication of the law enforcement agents and what they would do to take down organised crime groups. Matthew Harrod and his wife Fiona Kelly were described in court as living a lifestyle that was funded by drug trafficking and benefit fraud. They were subjects of a surveillance operation by the NCA, and they proved that he had brokered at least 3 kilo deals from Manchester to London, and he was jailed for at least 10 years at Kingston Crown Court. His wife pleaded guilty to benefit fraud, totaling £60,000 and money laundering, and she was given a suspended sentence of 18 months in order to do unpaid work in September of last year. The couple has not declared any income since 2003, but have paid for extensive renovations to their house. Kelly drove a convertible Mercedes-Benz worth £50,000, and the NCA branch commander said that Harrod had been involved in drug trafficking for many years. In 2014, Matthew Harrod was jailed for 10 years for supplying drugs, and he was back on the streets in 2017. Detectives now revealed that Harrod and 18 members of the gang have been jailed for the 138 years for this second conspiracy. So I really appreciate you joining me for this video. We've covered a lot of stories about EncroChat since June this year, and we did one the other day, so be sure to check that story out in relation to the exportation of tractors containing hundreds of kilos of amphetamines from the UK to Australia. And I'll definitely keep you updated on any more EncroChat stories. So as I said, this is a massive case to have come from EncroChat. So I really want to hear what people have to say on this story. Please don't forget to turn on your bell for notifications. And I'll be back again very shortly with some more news. Peace.